All right, we are live with an amazing episode, and I have Lindsay here who is going to talk to us about our menstrual cycle, how to align it with our businesses or just with our goals. And Lindsay is a menstrual cycle and feminine embodiment coach, so she knows what she's talking about, and she has the most beautiful journal that I'm going to share in the show notes. There's the link, you can go and check it out. But of course, I'm gonna speak to her about the journal too, so you get more information. But first of all, welcome, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Excited to chat with you.
It's a topic that I'm very interested about, and I don't have so much knowledge about it at all. Even though, of course, I'm 44, I had my period for quite a long time, but I have never really thought about how can I align my period to certain things that I want to accomplish in my business or how to do that.
That's
And
great. I'd love
yeah,
to. Yeah, I'd love to share that. And hopefully, there'll be a few insights for you along the way as well.
yes. And I also just wanted to mention to everyone who doesn't have a cycle anymore, who are menopausal or even before that, it's still valid,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, absolutely. We keep being cyclical. That means we
Oh,
are always changing as
nice.
women. So even if you are on HRT or you don't have a period, you've had a
Mm.
hysterectomy, whatever the situation is, or you've had a baby and your periods haven't returned, that kind of thing,
Oh.
this continues to be valid. And I think that's one of the things that's really important to know, because often it's even more important what I'm going to share as
Oh.
we get older and we don't therefore have a physical reminder of our ever-changing nature. We'll get a little bit more into that as we talk as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we're going to cover a whole lot of important information today. But before we even head into that, I'm always super curious about the person who comes on and shares all the information. So if you could introduce yourself properly to our guests, who you are, but also how you came to do what you're doing now. I'm super interested to hear your path.
Yeah, so I came to this work because I was a doula. So I was attending births and supporting
Mm.
women and their families during pregnancy. I've always been fascinated by the miracle of, what women's
Mm.
bodies can do and the power of that. And I've always had a real want to support people with their emotional well-being, with their emotional health. So the transition into working in womb health and womb wellness and working with menstrual cycles kind of came organically through working so much with pregnant women. And
Mm.
I would just ask them curiously, how was your periods? And that would bring up, and then start to notice the correlation between the women who were having quite a lot of fear, and there's a lot of mistrust around in pregnancy anyway, especially from the medical community.
Right.
So that was a bit of an overlap when I realized, we've got a little bit of an overlap here between our cycles. And I really believe that the entry of the first cycle and the first experience of our cycles sets a blueprint within us of how we experience womanhood. And so, and
Interesting.
how that kind of develops through whether we're someone who's like, oh, I hate my period, and I don't like that part. I don't like being a woman in this respect, and how that then potentially can change in our lives.
Mm.
So that's been really interesting to me. And as somebody myself, I struggled massively with my periods,
Yeah.
with severe PMS,
Right.
bordering on kind of PMDD, which is this very condition, which can even lead to kind of suicidal thoughts and things like that. And what it basically means is that during that time before your period comes,
Mm-hmm.
at that time your hormonal levels are it's more than an imbalance, but it's the way the
Mm.
brain works in that. But I was experiencing a lot of that, and I was experiencing adrenal fatigue, having had two babies really close
Mm.
together in a different country. So there was a
Oh.
lot of things compounding. And I then worked with a naturopath to balance my hormones and to get my periods in check, and started using what I now teach as cyclical living to basically utilize my cycle for my
Yeah.
health, but also for then all the things that I'm about to share with you as I ran my business,
Oh, that
as I
sounds
grew my
intense.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of people that are experiencing
Yes.
different menstrual cycle issues and challenges, that then means they're really at a lower capacity for in their business.
Mm-hmm.
If 1 or 2 weeks out of every month you're not able to function on the same level, that really puts women at a disadvantage who are experiencing that. So it's about, okay, how can we actually change that? Because, in the medical community, there's not a lot of talk about agency and taking your own power to change those things.
Yeah.
So that's what I help women with as well.
Oh, so may I just ask, you said you had 2 babies. May I ask how old are they now?
Yeah, well, I now have 3. They are now at 13. So this is also why this work, that's my daughter, is very important to me.
Yeah.
13, 11, and 5, my little boy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
so
God,
busy,
okay.
busy.
Yes, I can
Yeah.
imagine. Wow.
Yeah, but that's even more so important because I want to see, the change come about for my daughters as they go into that time and are able to understand, they already understand about
Yeah.
journaling and the changes that happen in their cycle.
So interesting. I always felt like I was a late developer. I think I was the latest of my friends who had the period. I think I was 15. It was super old. Or at least when I grew up, they all had it
Yeah,
at 13, 14.
yeah.
And then I just felt like I'm not normal.
Yeah.
It's so late.
Yeah, and there's so much, I think it's changed a lot now, but it's still quite a shame, taboo issue. I think anything around that age anyway always feels awkward.
It did, yeah.
It's always
Sure.
awkward to talk about. But if we could just plant the seeds, and if we could do that for ourselves, of you're actually not the same person every day, and that's okay. That's okay. Yes, because you were on it yesterday and you were, the social butterfly and you got everything done and very productive, doesn't mean you have to be the same person this day. And if we can start to predict and know our patterns, then we can feel like it's not really about being more in control, because I don't really like that idea. I don't want to move more into a masculine energy of like controlling everything.
Right.
We need to understand that we're not the same as men. They have their own cycles. I always tell people men have cycles, but
Oh
they
my
are
God. I told
men
my
have
boyfriend I'm
cycles.
gonna ask her today if men have their cycles because
Yeah,
he
but
says
guess
he
what?
does.
Yeah. But guess what? They're 24-hour cycles, and you listen to the times of their cycles. Testosterone cycle starts to peak at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning,
Oh.
starts to decline 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
God. That's
So that's
hilarious.
I always like to say, the working day, the 9 to 5 cycle, and
Yeah.
it being the same every day.
Oh my
Yes, it's
God.
different for the hours, because men are often more tired in the evening,
Yeah.
and they often have more energy in the morning. So yes, they do have their cycles that, also need respecting, and for them to understand
I
that.
love that. That's so true
But,
for us. Like he really loves the 9 to 5, even though he works from
uh-huh,
home as well. He could structure it differently, but he doesn't like it.
it
And
works for him because
yeah,
the world is set up to work for him.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
not like that at all.
No, you won't be. Yeah, and
No.
it's even the same, you can, and I'm generalizing, and I don't want people come back at me and say
Yeah.
anything, but I'm generalizing. But often men tend to, with testosterone cycles, we tend to see they prefer the same types of food for a while. You can get bored of things, but you find women, they like a certain type of food for a while, and then they're like, oh, I can't eat. I was really into salads last week, and this week I just can't be near them. And it changes so much. We're changing constantly, and because we're so
Yeah.
driven by our hormones.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I have to tell him about the cycle for men because it's so true.
Yes. But we as women have up to 480 fluctuations in our hormones per month.
No way.
That's a
What?
lot. Yeah. So when you realize that, you're like, okay, it is an emotional roller coaster.
So even on a personal note, then a private life, etc., it's hard to handle sometimes all these ups and downs, but then how
Sure.
to align that all with business on
Yes.
top, that is so interesting. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you work as a solo entrepreneur, or you're in a service-based business where you are your business, that
Yeah,
whole
exactly.
expression, then it really makes sense that we need to utilize our own energy patterns. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the different phases that come. But when we can utilize that, we're in a great position as business owners to be able to do that. It's
So true.
fantastic. We actually have agency and control over that.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this aspect. I would tell people, get yourself something to write, because I'm sure there will be lots of good stuff coming. And I'm
For
gonna
sure.
try and remember everything.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you and your audience also a link to a training that I've done about this as well, so you can actually have
Oh,
it written
oh,
down if that would be
nice.
helpful for you, because I know
Absolutely.
it's a lot. So hopefully you can, if
Uh,
you're listening in the car or something and you can't write down, then don't
exactly.
worry,
Now, so
it
I'll
will
put
all
it
be
in the
there for
show
you.
notes, everybody listening now. Of course, you can take your notes if you want, but there will be this whole link that I'll put in the show notes
Yeah,
and you
I
can
hope for
go and
that will
download.
be helpful because you can come back to it as you reach
Yes.
that part. Yeah, so I guess first thing to kind of share is that the cycle, I talk about it in four different parts, but in if we're looking at it hormonally, we can almost divide it into two.
Mm,
So the beginning of the cycle, which is pre-ovulation, and now the cycle itself exists because of ovulation. So we're
mhm,
thinking about the period all the time. We talk about the period because that's the obvious thing, but ovulation is the whole point of our cycle. And if we're done having babies or we're not having babies for choice or we can't have babies, and then the ovulation part is still important for our health. So sometimes we think, oh, and I don't need to have a cycle, but it remains important
mm,
for our bone health, for our brain health, all sorts of
mm,
things. So if you are still having your periods, if not on the end of menopause, and just to define, menopause is the year after your periods have stopped completely, so it's the year after,
mhm,
then this part will be relevant to you. And then I'm going to explain how to use the moon in a moment, if that's okay. I need to
for
share it like
sure.
that. So yeah, so we have ovulation and as the mid part of our cycle, and the pre-ovulation is called our follicular phase.
Mhm,
So after that is our luteal phase, and that is post-ovulation, and that's everything after ovulation's happened as we gear up for our period if we haven't become pregnant at ovulation,
mhm,
right? And in cyclical living, which is what I talk about, we divide it into four parts so that the first section of follicular is in two. And we talk about it with the inner seasons because it's a really easy way to understand it and really relevant. So you
mhm,
can think of the first bit, like after you've had your period, as inner spring. So
Yes.
it's like the energy is starting to return. And if we think about spring, it's about like the little shoots of plants coming through. Obviously we're in the northern hemisphere, we're in that season right now, so it's easy, well,
True.
apparently, but it's very grey outside my window today. But you're starting to see the lambs being born, you're starting to see all the new life coming, and that's how it feels because it's a new cycle that has arrived after our period. And so in terms of business, in our inner spring phase, that is when our creativity starts to kick back in, our energy starts to kick back in
Mm,
after our period, and we start to get all the ideas like, oh, I could do that, and I could do a reel about this, and I could do a blog about that, and all the different things that start to come up.
right.
Now, what normally happens as soon as your energy, especially if you're someone who doesn't necessarily like your period or you find you having to take a lot of rest during that, or you're having difficulties during your period, you may find your inner spring is one of your favorite times as you start to feel your energy arising. And as those ideas come on board, you might be like, oh yeah, I can do all these things. Yeah, yeah. And that's like a recipe for burnout because
Mm,
spring is not summer, which we're going to talk about in a second. Spring is
mm.
spring. We have to start small with just the growing of ideas and getting the moving pieces together. So like,
Interesting.
does that make sense?
Yeah, because I'm a writer too, so I'm just trying to write a book for young
Oh, really?
adults,
Oh,
and
amazing.
I'm just post period now, and I'm having all these ideas, but I'm
Oh,
not able to just sit down and write the chapter because I'm just seeding ideas right now. So it's exactly
amazing. Oh, that's
what you
so good that it
said.
aligns. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is like perfect for like making notes,
Yes.
brainstorming,
Yes.
doing voice notes to yourself, all of that stuff,
Hmm.
and not putting the pressure on you. Like, why can't I actually like write full sentences or
Yes.
actually do the thing now? Why can't I go into
Exactly.
the full on action mode? It's coming. So you're going to
Ah.
be there soon.
I was
Um,
desperate. I was telling my boyfriend today, my brain is just not working. I can't sit down and write like any sentence, so it makes sense.
yeah, exactly. So if you kind of know this is the idea formulating, and this is really the gathering of ideas
Hmm.
and new experiences. So that's a great time in the spring for that. And then we get to, and also arranging stuff like some more social stuff, like your
Hmm.
podcast, for example,
Ah,
so you can start like arranging it to be, in the part of your
yes.
inner summer. So that if you are not bleeding, then you're not having your periods. If you're on HRT and you're having a withdrawal bleed, you may find that your inner seasons kind of are a little bit back to front. So you might want to use this. You might want to notice whether or not this aligns. But if it doesn't, if you find actually after your period that's not how you feel, you might want to use the moon cycle. And the moon cycle for inner spring, so after the period, would be the waxing moon.
So just after new moon?
Yes, new moon would, yeah, exactly. And then waxing moon. So I also have a moon calendar if anyone wants like a digital one I can send to you as well, so you can see where the moons are and put them all in your diary.
Yes.
and work it all out where you are. So yeah, so waxing moon would be in a spring. And yeah, as I said, it's the same energy. It's really about like setting your intentions. Where do I want to go? Goal setting, gathering of ideas, and then you can move more into your action time, which is in your inner summer.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That does. Can I just ask how long this period is?
Yeah, good question. So it's different for everybody. Everyone always wants to know, like, what day does it start on?
Yes.
Like, what day does it end? I need to know. And we need to be really careful as we approach this, that this is a feminine area, right? So we need to come at it with our feminine energy, which isn't in linear terms. So it's very moving, and it's really about tuning in, and that's what I do with the journal, is help you to daily tune into, am I yet in inner spring? Because I'm in my inner summer, which I'll share about in a moment, and I don't feel like I'm in my inner summer yet. I haven't had the peak in confidence and the peak in, I haven't had that yet, so I'm waiting for that energy. So it doesn't necessarily align with a day, but if we're going to talk generally, if you say your period is maybe 5 days long or less, usually it's a day or two after your period is finished that your inner spring starts. So I usually say around day 7 is around inner springtime, but you'll know it because you'll just wake up going, oh, I could do this, I could do that. Or you'll just feel like a lightness coming over you. Yeah. You'll start wanting to kind of like clean and make way for stuff, like put stuff away, and just that spring cleaning idea comes through. Yeah, it comes through. Not necessarily cleaning your space, but organizing your Trello board or your emails or something, So inner summer is going to bring you in more of a kind of full on, I call it like Beyonce moment. So it's like your confident self. You're going to be more social, because if you think about it, what it aligns with the ovulation, it makes sense that you would then want to be more social and out there, more extra. So that's the time really where you want to be scheduling your networking events, your lives. You want to be more visible at that time, because you're going to feel able to, your skin's going to look better at that time. You're going to just feel naturally more sexy, more confident, more productive. And you can work longer hours in your time when you're ovulating. You're not as tired.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So you can kind of start to see where you can start to schedule things in.
Exactly.
And plan.
That really helps, actually.
Yeah. Do you want me to share more about this?
I could just take a week where I batch record podcasts or videos,
exactly.
The high profile group events, these kind of things.
Batching is so good for cyclical women because like you say, we've only got a limited amount of time in this energy, and we have to then wait for the next month. So this doing everything daily, show up daily on your social media, show up daily here, blah, 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 sales, all the things. It really doesn't work in the same way for us. So batching is a great idea.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody's taking notes and super interested in this right now.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. And then as you get over ovulation, now ovulation itself only lasts for 24 hours, but you stay in this kind of energy as you lead up to ovulation. So we could say that's like a day 12 to 16 type of area, 18 maybe if you're lucky. And then what happens post ovulation is our hormones drop off, like our estrogen, which is people pleasing hormone. It makes us more, it makes us more doing for others, caring for others, putting ourselves out there, and we want to be more productive.
Yeah.
Now, as that starts to drop off, our energy comes inwards. So we've got almost like an inhale phase of doing, and we could call it a yang phase,
Mm.
right? Doing, doing, doing. And then we've got our yin phase, our exhale inward phase. And it's really important that we honor both of those phases and we don't try to stay in the masculine of continue to do, 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 do.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's really hard
Yeah.
because some of us really get attached to that I'm doing so much, you know, for myself, that's how it is. It's difficult sometimes to move myself out of that.
Yeah.
But if we can start to see, okay, there are still tasks I can be productive at in my luteal phase, but it's just different stuff. So it's not going to be the social ideas. I mean, it's not going to be that stuff.
Yeah, it's more introverted. I don't know, maybe more, I don't know what it could be, like writing.
Writing is excellent because what happens at this point is we start to see things a bit clearer because we're not in our people-pleasing mode.
Yes.
So we're much more authentic in our writing.
Yes. Oh,
So we can start to talk about more edgy subjects and our
I
content.
love that. Oh gosh.
Yeah, which is going to get more interest
Yeah,
anyway, because
exactly.
that's what people want, right? So we can start to really put our own voice down in that luteal phase. And also it's great for decluttering because if you think of the next phase after summer is autumn or fall. So we're really looking at what is falling away, what are we getting rid of, what's not, what has worked in my business so far the last couple of weeks, and what is not working right now, what am I wrapping up? So there's like an impatience to this time where we're wrapping up energy.
I love the idea of every month setting a date as we feel it coming this autumn, that we start looking back on the business this past month and see what, as you said, what worked, what didn't work, and let go of things that didn't
Exactly,
work.
a
I love that.
review. Yeah, so I recommend actually doing that in your inner winter. So as you get to your period, because you're starting to get more clear and internal, but a lot of women experience the drop off of the estrogen and the progesterone rising can make them a bit foggier in terms of clarity. So I'll tell you, so many times I've nearly given up my business in my luteal phase of my period. Seriously, you know those moments where you're just like, I'm done, I'm getting a job. I don't care. I'd never survive, but
It's so funny. I
I'm just
never
going to
paid
get a job.
notice when I say these things, but I even tell my boyfriend too, I'm gonna go work in a supermarket. I had enough.
Yes, that's right. We've all been there, right? We can all relate. But I tell you, it's so many times I say, don't make any big decisions in your luteal phase.
Oh,
If my
wow.
friends call me and they're like, it's over, I can't do it with him anymore, I'm like, where are you in your cycle?
So
Talk to me in a week, see where you're at. I feel fine now. Yeah, so don't make big decisions in this phase. It's
Oh
really
my
important.
God.
Wait until your period comes, then your hormones will be more settled
Oh,
and you'll have more
yes.
clarity. So that's when you make the review on your business. That's when you make decisions.
So interesting. Yeah, how things get out of proportion then, huh, those days.
Oh my God, massively, massively.
Oh gosh.
Yes. Yeah. So I always say, don't make any decisions in that part, and then make your decisions when you're bleeding, and having a day to do a review. You know how we would do like a monthly review or something like that is a fantastic time to do that, and then look back through your cycle and start to see, oh, that was my pattern there, and did I give myself what I needed in that space, and because it's going to be about managing your energy, not just in your business, but how it worked with your life, right, as well, and what's going on. Yeah.
Wow. And as you mentioned, the people pleasing aspect, I think when it's a healthy cycle, we all go through this people pleasing thing at some point. What is then going on with women who are always people pleasing? Is there something with their hormones, or is it just like education? They grew up like this?
Yeah, I think that's a big topic because that's in conditioning, isn't it, in our
Conditioning,
society massively, and through our history, so
True.
if you look back through our history, it's even more so. Then obviously in England people were sent to elocution school and told, only speak when you're spoken to, and only speak about these topics, and keep your voice really light and fluffy, and so that has obviously it still impacts us because we're always reverberating whatever our ancestors brought to us as well.
And
It's
so it
not
goes
just
against our natural cycle then in the other parts of our cycle when we're
yes,
people
and
pleasing too
well,
much.
this is it. This is why society doesn't like this is the image of a woman that society likes and wants to push to us is the inner spring, the maiden archetype.
Yes.
The young, ever-giving, inspiring beauty,
Yes.
beauty, and the mother archetype, which is our inner summer. And by the way, that's the
Mm.
full moon. If I've got to tell you
Oh,
the
the
moons, that's
full
the full
moon.
moon is the inner summer, ovulation time, and that's what society wants us to think of as women. We're either mothers, nurturers, caregivers, or we're beautiful young women there
Hmm.
to please,
Right.
right? Not so much loving the wild woman archetype of our inner autumn, which is
Wow.
about she knows her worth. She's like that queen archetype's like, I'm going out there to get what I want because this is about me having my desire and my dream and whatever it might be. And she's not really there to, she's a more authentic version of herself, not really there to please others.
I love that. I just want to mention also so people know, I will tag your Instagram, which is called
Oh,
Wild
thank you.
Women. What was
Yeah,
it called?
where the wild women are.
Yes. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
put that because you were mentioning the wild woman archetype,
Yeah.
which is one of my favorites. I wrote
Yes.
poetry. I have a poetry book called When a Wild Woman
Oh,
Rises.
really? Oh, amazing. Oh, I'll have
So
to
I
find that.
love to find out that there's a whole part of our cycle that is
Yeah, that's
dedicated
the inner
to this.
autumn. Yeah,
Nice.
after your period, absolutely. And then you've got the inner crone or the wise woman,
Mhm.
sage archetype for your inner winter. And
Ah,
those are the elements that society is not so happy about, and just obviously why we get, oh, is it that time of the month? Because we've got
yes.
a little less patience. And
Yeah.
it's not because we're being unreasonable, it's just because we're seeing things more clearly and we're not
Mhm.
able to then people put up with it really.
That's true. Like less
Right,
bullshit then, huh?
right, exactly that. Yeah, yeah. But can serve us
Oh,
beautifully in our businesses.
so true.
Yeah.
So what would you say for our winter time or the full moon time? What kind of tasks do we do in our businesses then?
In the winter, so the winter's actually new moon or a dark moon, really, effectively, but
Dark moon, sorry, yes.
new moon
Yes.
time. That is really time for as much rest as possible. So that's
Mm.
integration, right, of what's been, and really,
Yes.
really incorporating rest. And there's, I'm sure you know, there's
Yeah.
7 different types of rest. Well, there's probably more than that, I think, but there's lots of different types of rest that we need. It's not just
Mhm.
physical rest, but we really do need, especially if we're bleeding, we really do need to take that time to
Yes.
rest. Like our immune system goes a bit more depleted at that time as well. So
Mm.
it's going to give to yourself and to your business and to your family if you actually rest at that time.
Love that.
And you're integrating, so you can review, you can journal, you can connect with your intuition at that time.
Mm.
That's the best time to be able to do those things.
Would you say, as you mentioned, intuition, does it go along with channeling better at that time for us?
100%.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
okay.
yes, yes.
Oh.
So you might channel an idea because the veil is basically gone at that point. You're in most
Nice.
connection with yourself, so, and spirit, if that's your kind of belief
Mm-hmm.
system. Those feelings, those ideas and those things that come fully formed, they just drop into your brain. I'm usually like
Yeah.
in the shower or something, and it's just holding space for that during that time, and knowing that if it's supposed to be, as your energy returns and you're in a spring, then you'll probably get all the like ideas for it and how you're
Mm-hmm.
going to do it come through, and you can
That's so
action it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know anything about before when we as women came together? I don't know if it was called Red Tent or
The red
something, the
tent movement.
concept.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, because it would have been for different reasons, but in different areas. So in some areas it was about kind of protection of women and understand. There was a much more of a understanding of women's spaces and honoring the woman.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been very, very normal for women to gather together to sing, to drum, to dance, all of those kind of
Wow,
things, and
nice.
to, and like sweat lodges and things like that, very common.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would have been an important time for women to come together. In other areas and other times, it was actually used as a banishment. So those women were seen as unclean and impure and not to be near the
Yes.
men. And in other places, it was seen that men, in other times and places, it was seen as like other people. They didn't want to, that was seen as most spiritual time. So it was a
Mm.
protection of those women. Like, I don't want to like get in the way of your intuition and your spirit. So it's very varied because we've got so many different accounts,
Yeah.
but there was definitely a much more importance and seen as a significant event than it is now.
Mm.
Now it's like pretend you're not any different, pretend you don't have your period and it doesn't affect you. And if you think back to all the adverts that are on TV, it's like, I'm a tennis player, I can do anything on my period. And it's like, I don't want to be jumping around in a white skirt on my period. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
You know, like I can win an Olympic medal on my period. It's like, okay, that just makes me feel really rubbish when I'm laying in bed with my hot water bottle.
Horrible.
You know, it's just very much like power through. And we can be so much better when we don't do that, when we really allow ourselves to experience the ebb and flow of our real authentic selves.
Now I'm curious, because I would have imagined women coming together when we bleed together. Well, of course, that's difficult because we all bleed at different times. But I do have lots of women who bleed, for example, at the new moon, or others just at the full moon. And for me, it's both. It comes at the new moon and it shifts into the full moon. And so I have both throughout the year. I wonder what that is about.
Yeah, I wrote a whole blog on that because I love that as well. It really fascinates me, like how it aligns. They say that the red moon, if you bleed on the red moon, it's like the midwives of society, like the women who are like the healers and the people who are changing things and
what
caring
is the
for
red moon, the full moon?
A red moon is if you bleed with the full moon.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a red moon cycle.
Yeah.
So I wrote a whole blog you can find on my website all about this, where you can find the different ones. And then if you bleed with the new moon, that's the most traditional way of bleeding, as I've just set out for you in those seasons. So that would be the white moon cycle. And those are usually the women who are maybe still having children, or not necessarily having children, but nurturing something, or, you know, like that. It's in that kind of energy. And as I said, the other way around is kind of change making that energy. So it's kind of interesting. And then there's, you know, purple moon, pink moon. There's a lot of different ones you can read about.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna link it in the show notes for anyone who's interested.
But it's interesting. It changes through your life, and you can sometimes look to what's happening in your business and what's happening in your life and go, oh, that's really interesting. And I feel that really aligns to where I'm at.
Because I feel throughout the year, now that I'm thinking about it, there's like certain points during the year where I'm totally different, depending on when my period is on the full moon versus when my period comes on the new moon.
Yes, and that will definitely affect it, because if you're bleeding on the full moon, if you think about what I said, full moon is actually aligned with ovulation and being an outwards energy, and your period is not an outwards energy, it's an inwards energy.
Yeah.
So you will feel in complete, almost misalignment, I guess, from the moon. It just means that you're going to have everything more intensified at that point. Everything's going to come forwards more. At that time. But it's usually when that happens, it's because you're there to make change, you're there to like speak through new ideas, channel ideas, that kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think I'll really look into this.
Yeah, you're going to be so obsessed now. I hope.
Totally. No, I love it. Since we already mentioned your journal a couple of times, first of all, I want to say it looks beautiful. So anybody listening to this podcast, I really want you to go at least check it out on Amazon.
Thank you.
Can you share a bit about what people can find in this journal, how it works?
Yeah, sure. So because we're changing every day, if we just do the same thing every day, or what we're always doing, or, you know, not really paying attention to what's going on, we're not really accessing our own inner wisdom. And so the journal exists really to help you tap into something that's a bit more beyond what's going on in the mind. So I don't know about you, do you journal? Do you like journaling?
I journal a lot, yes.
Yeah, so I love journaling as well. It's like so helpful, especially I have such a busy mind.
Yeah,
I find if I can just get it out, it's like I can feel clearer, I feel lighter. And so it really exists for people to access journaling in a way that's a little bit more somatic. So in my work in embodiment, I'm working with women a lot to access, okay, well, that was what you were thinking, but let's just dive in. Where's that stored in the body? How does that feel in your body? What's going on beneath the surface of what you think is happening? And the journal just has daily prompts that ask you, you know, how do you feel? What sensations are you experiencing in your body right now? How do you want to move today? What do you need? And by asking just a few really simple questions every day to yourself, you're asking, how do I feel? And that means more than just like, you know, thinking. It means really taking that moment to reconnect in with your heart space and check in with your body and what's actually going on. I found is so many women have such a resistance to asking themselves how they feel,
Right.
to really
Yes.
knowing that.
I was just thinking, I mean, I love gratitude journaling too, because
Mm,
gratitude is
I love that.
important, but I love even more just being authentic and being able to sit down with a journal and say, you know what, actually, I'm in this phase of my period and I'm not feeling
Hmm.
good in my body right now. And
Yeah.
that's okay,
Just
you
a
know?
place to be really honest and to really
Yeah.
notice something that might be going on. And then it asks you what you need. And again, that's another hard one for women to talk about, to say what they
Mhm.
want, because we're being so conditioned out of saying what we want.
No,
And dealing with disappointment is hard. And if I
true.
can't get what I might want, then I'm not going to speak it at all, because then at least I won't be disappointed.
Mm.
So getting into the habit of actually being allowed and encouraged to say what you want. And then the next
Mm.
question says, how do I honor those needs, even if it's just 1% of those needs?
Mm.
So we can really then take that commitment of how can I meet my own needs and be my own, like the person that's going to look after yourself the most,
Mm.
right? And then
Beautiful.
there's oracle card section. So there's oracle card questions. There's loads and loads of prompts for each inner season or inner
Mm.
moon or the moon phase. And then there's like a wheel, so you can do a review every month that we talked about.
Right.
So you can easily kind of see your patterns and start to understand where your cycle is going. So there's
Wow.
lots of different ways of it can work in there.
What a nice project you did there.
Yeah, it took a while to kind of get it
Uh-huh.
together, to kind of think about how it's gonna look. But that was what I was doing with everyone who I was working with on my program, and I thought I just need to have an actual place where it's asking them these things rather than them having to remember
Right.
to
As you're
do.
mentioning a program, can you share more about how you work with women in
Yeah,
what
so
capacity?
I do. I work with them one to one if they're experiencing quite a lot of challenging menstrual cycle issues or perimenopausal symptoms
Mm-hmm.
that are they're wanting to work in a holistic way, because that's how I work, using kind of herbs and food and a lot of emotional kind of somatic
Mm.
counselling. We use voice work as well, because that's another part of my work we haven't spoken about, but that's another part of my work. And then I also have a program called Reclaim, which is for women who want to delve more into what we're talking about on a
Mm-hmm.
deeper level, with the support and with the accountability.
Mm.
And a lot of those women have been business owners. I think
Yeah,
naturally just I gravitate those women,
true.
which is great. Yeah, so yeah, it's a really nice way
Oh,
to work together.
nice.
Yeah, I think
Oh.
that's the main kind of ways that I work. I sometimes do retreats and things like that as well. Yeah, one of the things that I would suggest people do as well is in my calendar, like I don't know about you, my calendar's on my phone, it's on my computer, I have to have a paper one as well to keep it all in one place. But like on the Google Calendar or whatever you use on your
Mm-hmm.
phone, you can color code it. So
Mm.
if you like doing that, I find it a really helpful way of just looking at it and knowing where my period is, where's my inner spring, where's my inner summer. And so I have a different color for each kind of
That's
week.
really helpful.
And I've got that for, several months in a row, so I can kind of have an overview. Obviously, we have months where our periods are, late or early, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and especially as you go into perimenopause, so it's not as useful as you get to that point, but it might be a starting point for some people. And you can
Oh.
certainly do it with the moon phases because they don't shift around.
Would you say you have like less client work or group work on the color-coded week where you have your period?
Yeah, so like in my program, for example, because we ran every week when it was running as a group program, it's off right now. It's going to come back in the autumn. But I had a yin yoga
Mm-hmm.
woman come in. She was amazing practitioner, and we just did yin yoga in the week that I was on my period, so that I
Oh,
actually wasn't really
nice.
facilitating. I was joining in the
That
group,
is so clever. That is such a great idea
and
for
I ran the
people.
session from my bed, and that's
Ah,
how I often will coach
nice.
from my bed during that week. And
Yes.
I just say, yeah, it's my week of my period. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
coaching from my bed today, and really modeling that. And then they would show up doing the same in their pajamas
That's so cute.
on those days, And so it's a
Yeah.
real kind of, yeah, owning and modeling of that energy. But yes, definitely, I try not to have social giving stuff during
Yeah,
that time.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Apart from the Instagram you already mentioned, where can people find you? Is there a website, Facebook?
Yeah, I've got a Facebook group that's pretty active and lovely. It's about 800 or 900 of us in there. It's
Gonna link
called,
that up as well.
yeah, it's really lovely. It's called Where the Wild Women Are as well, so you can find us there. So yeah, I'm pretty active in that. For anyone who buys the journal as well, if you're in my group and you let me know, I've got another little subgroup for people who are journaling. And right now I'm offering kind of free support alongside the journal.
Nice.
Yeah, just to kind of help people understand how to use it and get into the habit of using it.
Oh,
And then you can find my website, which is wherethewildwomenare.co.uk. All my bits and bobs are on there. Yeah, I think I've given you all the links and
yeah,
things
they
for
will
your
all be in
post
the
them all
show
up.
notes, clickable, so
Yeah,
people can jump on your Instagram or wherever they want to find you. And I hope they
yeah.
do.
Thank you. And I would just say, it takes time to get to know your cycle in this way. I've been doing it for, 10 plus years and understanding my cycle. So it's not always immediate, but I hope that kind of gives you some inspiration to start at least
Yeah,
noticing and start small, with anything, start
exactly.
small.
No, it's a huge topic, and I'm sure you could be talking hours and hours about it with all your experience. But you've given us such a great glimpse into this. And
Oh, I'm really, really
yeah,
glad
it's
to have the opportunity
really
to talk about it. Thank you so
fascinating
much.
stuff. Also with the color coding, I love the idea.
Yeah,
No,
good,
it's really helpful. My goodness, I think I don't have any other questions
good. Well,
at
good.
the moment, but I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart
Oh, you're
for
so
your
welcome.
work in general, that you help women that way. That's beautiful.
Thank you so
And
much.
for showing up and doing this with us here.
Oh, you're so welcome.
So yes, I'll finish this episode here and I'll be coming with a new episode soon. Goodbye, everyone.